Baconators, mount up. What's up? It's Rob Cressy, founder of Bacon Sports, and it's time to talk about the Super Bowl from a betting perspective, like we've done the entire season. Industry insider from Covers.com, my man, Jason Logan. Jason.
That was quite the intro.
Yes. Who is your hashtag random athlete of the day?
Well, I'm on kind of, Super Bowl theme, and I'm a Cowboys fan, obviously. I'm actually wearing my DeMarcus Ware jersey. Sentimentally, I got a pull for Ware to win one. That's why he's in Denver alone. So anyway, getting back on the Super Bowl track, Alvin Harper, deep threat wide receiver for my Cowboys back in the early 90s. Took that money, went to Tampa Bay, and then faded into obscurity.
Nice. For me, I am also keeping it personal. I am going with a man who had probably one of the top 3 sports moments of my entire life. I'm talking about Fast Willie Parker, who broke one against the Seahawks right out of the gate in the second half after the Steelers looked like complete garbage, and I pretty much lost it there in Detroit. So fantastic.
Nice. That's a good. I totally forgot about him.
I'll never forget about Fast Willie. So, on today's show, what we're going to do is dish about Panthers-Broncos game, both the line, over, under, but we're also going to talk about all those juicy prop bets that are out there. So, Jason, Panthers favored by 5.5. I saw the line on the over-under is down to 44.5, or at least on the one book I saw there. For me, the biggest issue that I have is I like the Carolina Panthers, but the value is gone on Carolina. There's a chance I could see that line possibly getting up to 6. I've seen some 6s out there. So what are your thoughts on everything?
Sure. Right now, a lot of sports books are testing the waters at 6, whether it be last week or early this week. They're kind of seeing if they can draw Denver money at 6. And a lot of them did. A lot of them sharp bettors are kind of waiting in the reeds, waiting to snatch up the 6s. So they know that that's money is there, and they're pretty happy about that. They were worried that it wasn't going to show up at 6, and maybe they'd have to go to 6.5 and 7, and then you're moving through some pretty key numbers, and that's when you've got to worry about those middles coming in. As of right now, they're kind of comfortable at the 5.5. They know there's Denver money at 6. Everything could change because this is a game where it's dictated by the public, not the sharps. It's that one rare game. And also, too, like 95 to 98% of this handle is going to come in Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So once the tourists start rolling into Las Vegas, and once the average Joes are like, oh yeah, Super Bowl's this weekend, let's bet some games, they log on to their online accounts. Like I said, 95 to 98% of the handle is going to come in, and it could be people looking for a big score on the underdog and taking the Broncos. So you never really know what's going to happen until that Saturday and Sunday of game.
And over under 44.5, it was at 45. I like the under in this game, considering how good both of these defenses are. But the casual bettor out there certainly wants the favorite and the over. Do you have any lean or insight on this?
Sure, yeah. The early money was on the over, and it was a bit of a baffling line because, as far as wise guys go, they know that the public wants to bet this game over. No one wants to go and watch the Super Bowl be a 14-10 game. So they know money's going to come on the over. And like I said, as the tourists roll into town in Nevada and as people log into their sports books this weekend, they're going to want to bet the over. So this could continue to climb. And then if you are looking for the under, wait for that number to go up and then bite back on the other side. So it's kind of weird to see this under money right now and the line actually to come down from, I think it was like 45, 45 and a half. And I'm seeing 44s out there. But like you said, it's 2 really great defenses. Carolina's offense kind of overshadowed how well its defense is. And one thing I looked at in my mismatches column this week was how well the defense kind of set the table for the offense. This is a team that was number 2 in offensive starting field position. And so they had an easier path. They weren't backed up inside their own 20 because the defense did their job. They held the other team back, forced a punt. They got a fairly good return. And, Cam Newton and those guys were off and running, didn't have to, play with their backs against the end zone. So there's so many factors and so many ways to look at this game right now. I know I'm doing my muff punt column. There's some really cool trends out there as far as the leaning over in the Super Bowl. There are some under ones over, but one that I'll give you a sneak peek of. This is the 5th time, I believe, since 96, 97 that the top defense in total yards allowed was playing in the Super Bowl. and all 5 of those games involving that top defense have gone over.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's surprisingly there are some more trends out there. If you put your weight in trends, I mean they're a fun talking point, which is why I bring them up. But every game should be kind of treated as an individual game, no matter if it's the Super Bowl or a Week 1 game.
Right. So here's the thing: I want to bet on the Panthers, but I'm not going to do it at 5.5. So for people out there that want to get action on Carolina, what I was thinking is taking Cam Newton to win the MVP, taking essentially the spread out of it. And obviously there's the risk of Ted Ginn all of a sudden running a punt back and getting a touchdown, or Luke Kuechly having 12 tackles, a sack, and an interception for a touchdown. But what would you recommend to somebody out there who wants to get on Carolina but doesn't want to lay the 5.5 or 6 because the value's gone?
Sure. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. There's a million different ways to bet this game. And most sportsbooks offer alternative spreads. Like you can even get Carolina as an underdog if you want to pay the price for that. It's not cheap. But I mean, if you're thinking Panthers going to win, then why not go all in on the Panthers? And there's a couple cool alternative lines out here, and they're paying off big. So I mean, if you're looking for a big score on the big game, let's see, you can get with the extra points, you can get Carolina -7 at +130, -10.5 at +190, -14.5 at +320. And I mean, there's nothing that's showing that this team isn't capable of blowing a team out by more than 2 touchdowns. So, you could kind of feel pretty good in that. You can go all the way up to -21, which is paying out pretty big. You can even flip it, play the Broncos at faves. Denver -3.5 is paying at +375, which is actually, that's a pretty tempting bet. I mean, every Super Bowl, the underdog money line is one of the more popular plays. And it was funny, the books weren't taking a lot of action on that this year, but it's starting to ramp up. And I will say, as the tourists come into town and the Joe bettors log into their accounts, these are the plays that they're going to be looking to make. If I'm in Vegas, I want a big score, so I'm going to bet the underdog to win straight out. Denver was as big as +215 at some books, and now that action is coming in, and now they're down to like +195. And I think that's going to go down even more as those tourists roll into town. So I mean, if you're going all in on Denver, if you're going all in on Carolina, why not go big? Bet within your means. I don't want to see you putting your car on the line, but there is value to be had there. If you're going to play the money line, then why not Denver -3.5 at basically almost double the price now. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually mind having Denver -6.5 as well. I mean, being under the key touchdown, you could very easily see the Broncos win by a touchdown, and you're like, oh, that's a scenario. And on the flip side, I wouldn't be opposed to getting some better numbers, getting the Panthers -6.5 or 7, and try and play that arbitrage there, hoping that it's just a 1 touchdown game.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there is endless possibilities to this game. So while if you missed your ticket on that early spread, and quite honestly, during the NFC Championship game, you could have got Carolina -2.5 against Denver if you had jumped on it the second that they were starting to put out those early Super Bowl lines.
Wow. So
yeah, -2.5 was as low as I'd seen it, was -2.5 at some online places.
Speaking of endless possibilities, let's transition over to the endless amount of prop bets that are out there. This is where the casual fan gets to have so much fun. If for us, me being a Steelers fan, you being a Cowboys fan, I don't actually have a vested interest in this game. So these are the things that if we see a repeat of Seattle-Denver where it's a blowout, you're like, well, crap, I need something to root for. So
that's right, yeah.
Let's talk about some of these fun prop bets, and I'll actually let you take the lead on this.
Okay. I always kind of like to make my own prop bet, which is fun. I just kind of spitball it with buddies and guys around the office. And in the wake of this newest Johnny Manziel football news, some terrible stuff going on with this guy, I'm wondering if they're actually going to mention him during the broadcast. So I would like to see a Johnny Manziel prop, and maybe there is one out there. Johnny Manziel mentions at 0.5, so at a half. Will there be one? Will there be none? I would have to say none, just because of the way that this story is coming out. One would be a pretty significant, sorry, none, or would be a pretty significant favorite right now. I'd have to see it like minus 190, minus 200 maybe, and then paying back fairly reasonable on the other side.
Wow, I love that one. Yeah, because you have to think about the way that the NFL and networks want to handle their branding, and there's so much positivity around it that there should be no reason to talk about Johnny Manziel during this, unless he were to.
You never know what's going to come out of Phil Simms' mouth.
Whoa, exactly, because
which is great.
The only way I could see it is if there's going to have to be some sort of comparison between Cam Newton and Johnny Manziel if we're talking running, young quarterback.
Well, here's the tricky thing too, is that we're talking about 2 Heisman winning quarterbacks. So if they pull up that Heisman list and it shows his name, does that count, or does it have to be mentioned by an announcer? So maybe there's a good chance that it might come up, but I'm sure the NFL, if they're having kind of a sit down of what to say and what not to say, I'm sure Johnny Football's been blacklisted. So,
wow, I really like that one. So for me, a prop bet that I am looking at: will either backup quarterback take a snap in this game? Yes, plus 200. No, minus 300. In my logic, Peyton Manning is 1 hit away from Brock Osweiler going in. He is also 3 interceptions in the first half away from going in. And there is still a scenario where Carolina blows out Denver to the point where Derek Anderson is kneeling the ball, or at least that's what I'm saying. For me, this is, of course, a square bet, but I want to root for the yes.
Yeah, it was funny. A couple weeks ago, you and I were talking about possible Super Bowl MVP candidates and long shot favorites, and Osweiler wasn't on the list. He is now. I've actually seen Osweiler, what was it, plus 17,500. So like he's paying to win MVP. So like you said, maybe Manning comes out and gets rocked early on, and then Brock's going to come in and save the day. I don't know. Kubiak's got to have some pretty big marbles to pull out Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. It's got to go pretty bad for him to kind of take his swan song away from him.
Whoa, of course. But this is the ultimate. There's no time to say, well, this is Peyton Manning, let's leave him. Hypothetically, he goes 4 for 19 in the first half with 2 picks. The offense is stagnant. We see the opposite of what happened in the Patriots game, where the Carolina defense is getting to Peyton Manning like the Broncos did to Tom Brady. Then you're like, uh-oh. And if they get down, you know they're going to need to be throwing the ball. It's a narrative for me, who is an anti-Peyton Manning guy. I'm certainly rooting for all of the anti-Peyton Manning things.
I could see it like a halftime switch, like if he did really bad and then they went into the half, and then they came out and kind of came up with, Peyton Manning, his foot's acting up, or
right,
concussion symptoms maybe, or something like that, trying to soften the blow that maybe he's just got nothing left in the tank.
So keeping with Peyton Manning, here's another one that I like. If I'm going to root for Peyton Manning, this is how it's going to be. Peyton Manning rush yards minus 0.5. That's right. Does Peyton Manning get 1 rushing yard? We saw him scramble for, I believe it was like 11 or 12 in the Patriots game. Any lean on this one?
It's a pass rush that can get to him, and he may have to run for his life, or, kind of stagger. He almost looks like a Tim Burton character, like walking out of the shadows the way he kind of runs. But yeah, I mean, there is value there, especially with, like I said, with that Carolina pass rush. If they're able to get the pressure on him, and he's got to scoot and boot, then that's, that half a yard doesn't seem that it's that much. So.
And they have been rolling him out a little bit more, getting him outside of that pocket. So who knows what could materialize. All right. Is there another one that you want to talk about?
One funny one that I kind of looked at and handicapped a little more seriously than maybe I should. It was Beyonce's dress at the Super Bowl halftime show. I'm trying to remember the odds. And going into it, I know that black and white for her first outfit were the favorites at, I think, like plus 300, maybe even lower than that. And then you had like Red and blue were up there like plus, I think 600, 700, but gold was like plus 800 or maybe even 10 to 1, maybe even plus 1,000. And this being the golden Super Bowl, the 50th Super Bowl with the gold 50-yard lines and the gold trimmed all the apparel this year, it just kind of made sense to me that Beyonce should come out in a golden outfit. And we've seen her sport the gold. What was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? She was the Super Bowl halftime show. She opened with like a black leather bustier skirt thing. And Beyonce's not going to get caught wearing the same thing twice, Rob.
You're a very fashionista there, Joan Rivers. I like where your head is at.
That's me on the red carpet at Super Bowl Sunday. Yeah.
I like your logic there, certainly. So
makes sense.
Some other prop bets to dish about. Who will the Super Bowl MVP thank first? God and his team are both at plus 200, and this was in your Super Bowl prop bets article that you guys have on covers.
That's right. Yeah, this is also one that maybe I handicapped a little more than I should have. Maybe I should be focusing on game analysis and not these sort of things. It was funny. Last year, God was actually an underdog, which is, if you can bet on the creator of the universe, you probably should. I don't think God actually paid out last year, but now it's kind of running neck and neck. I actually went back and looked at Cam Newton's post-game interview after the BCS championship game with Auburn. And he gave thanks to God. So I think that's there. Peyton Manning, while he is a devout Christian, he does a good job of kind of separating, religion from pigskin. And in his last Super Bowl win there against the Bears, he didn't really thank anyone. He kind of thanked I'm trying to think, it might have been Jim Nantz or whoever was doing the commentary at the time. He thanked him at the end of it, but he didn't really thank his teammates, the fans, God, his dad, anyone. So, Peyton just kind of kept it very, very coy. If he does win, he definitely should thank his teammates because they've piggybacked his old bones all year round. So,
right. Well, I wouldn't think that. I think that God has value because let's say a lesser known player somehow wins MVP, or maybe it's a cornerback where first thing that they're going to say is, I got to give all glory to God. He created me. I knew the entire time. I believed in myself. He believed in me. And this is why I did this. That's sort of the other avenue, because I don't see Peyton Manning win the MVP, and I'm with you. If he does, I don't see him giving the shout out to JC.
Yeah, I lean towards the quarterbacks because that's who always
of course.
So,
all right, a few other ones that I like. Excessive celebration penalty, yes, plus 260, no, minus 400. And my logic on the yes would be a Carolina Panthers blowout. We know they are very pro celebration. So I don't see them being undisciplined during the game. But let's say we're talking mid to late fourth quarter, similar scenario to the Arizona game where all of a sudden they take one to the house, and I'm not sure who's the most flamboyant there because I don't see Luke Kuechly getting it. Probably a cornerback all of a sudden, and then they just do the complete team dab in the end zone, get the 15-yarder for the cover.
Yeah, and that kind of fits into the way you should be betting props in general is, go with your bread and butter, your steak and potatoes numbers, your spread and your total, get an idea of how the game is going to play out in your head, have that narrative, and then bet accordingly. You don't kind of want contradicting props. You don't want to, bet the under and then all of a sudden start taking the yes and the over in, yards passing and touchdowns scored. You don't want contradicting numbers. So yeah, I mean, that definitely fits the narrative. If you're comfortable thinking, okay, Carolina's got this, it's going to be a blowout, then that's something. I thought about it the exact same way that you did. This would be a late game score, possibly, a defensive touchdown. It kind of, icing on the cake or cherry on the sundae, team dab or photo or whatever they got planned. Maybe they go into the archives of the CFL and do like the 4-man exercise bike one that the Stampeders did so many years ago. That was one of my favorites. But yeah, when you're betting prop bets, that's the best way to go, is kind of get an idea of how you think the game is going to play out and make sure you're not stepping on your own toes.
I will have to say, with the Super Bowl, I am much less disciplined of a bettor because I like to root for things to happen. I actually think this will be a close game. I think the defenses are going to be let's call it the leaders on the field. So this is excessive celebration penalty. Doesn't seem like it'd be a good call for me based on what I think is going to happen. Because I don't believe, put it this way, I don't think the odds of the blowout narrative are as likely as the close defensive battle in a situation like this.
Sure. And you're not alone on this too. If you actually look at the MVP odds, William Hill, Nevada, which is they're actually the biggest sportsbook operator in Nevada, the 102 books across the state. They've taken the money on Cam, and they've taken some money on Peyton Manning and some of the bigger offensive weapons. But there's been huge action on guys like Kuechly, Von Miller, and my man DeMarcus Ware. Kuechly opened 25-1 to win MVPs, down to 16-1. Miller was 40-1, down to 25-1. And DeMarcus Ware was 75-1 to win MVP. Now he's 30-1. I'm just kind of looking at some of their numbers here. Cam is drawing 40% of the money at William Hill books. Everyone else is kind of single digit percentages as far as number of dollars wagered on him to win MVP. And this is kind of a cool prop for Nevada books. And you may not realize this, is that this is the first year that Nevada books have had the chance to offer MVP prop odds. Because of the Nevada Gaming Control Boards, they kind of have some sticky rules about certain things. This has been the first year that they've been able to allow Heisman betting, which is something that you kind of take for granted. You see all the time on online books, and MVP Super Bowl honors. So kind of a cool market for Nevada books to dip a toe into. And hopefully they get to expand in some of the bigger ones now too.
All right, cool. So let's talk about probably the most controversial prop bet that is out there. Will there be an earthquake in this game? Yes, plus 1,000. We're going to call this one the Degenerate Special because this is the degenerate one for sure. And this is also the Hater Special because obviously I get it. You're rooting for a natural disaster and everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe they're offering this. Enough about that. I'm past that. We're talking about sports betting. So a few things on this. One, plus 1,000, horrible odds. But for me as the guy who's an action junkie, the reason I would potentially take this is because you would then be able to have on your ledger, I bet on when there was an earthquake and it successfully happened. So there was an earthquake during a 2013 Raiders-Chargers game. Also, yesterday there were 3 earthquakes of 1.5 magnitude or greater in Santa Clara, and there was 13 of them in the last 7 days. But here's the thing, it needs to be a magnitude 3.0 in order for people to notice it. So what we've got here is there is seismic activity in the area, but just not to the point that it registers. So what I would be rooting for is the low level 3.1 earthquake that just says, whoa, Phil, did you feel that? But nothing happens, thus plus 1,000. That's my thought process and breakdown on will there be an earthquake in this game.
You handicapped the pants off that one. Is there a stipulation that it has to be felt or has to be a particular measurement? It has to reach a certain scale?
I did not see that, but I think it would be a mention on the air that we have an earthquake.
Okay. Hopefully it's not like, that World Series earthquake.
Right.
That was very devastating. And it's one of those things that, I bet on that earthquake. And it's just like, you're the worst person on the face of the earth. There was actually a prop bet out there a few years ago, the December, the 12-12-12, the Mayan apocalypse or whatever it was supposed to be. And there were a few sportsbooks that actually had Will the World End on December 12th, 2012. And, so it had some big odds on it. But I'm just wondering, like, that's the biggest sucker bet in the world. How are you going to cash that?
Yeah.
And world ends. And is that really what you want to be worried about? Is like, yes.
Well, on the flip side,
you just cash that $5 bet on the world to end.
You will go down as a winner. Just saying that's the ultimate win when you're like, listen, guys, I may not have been successful my entire life in betting, but I call the biggest one.
On the world to end. I'm sure that'll get you through the pearly gates too, right?
Rob Cressy, what do you have to say for yourself? You're like, well, I took the over on the will the world end.
Yeah.
All right, cool. 2 more for us. Will Ted Ginn Jr. drop a pass? Yes and no, both -120. So I did some digging on this one. He had 44 receptions this year, 96 targets, 10 drops. That's a drop percentage of 10.4%. That is the highest among wide receivers with 60 or more targets. But the last 5 games, Ted Ginn's targets, 3, 14, 3, 1, and 2. Combine this with the fact that Denver has a very tough secondary. So there's a scenario where Ted Ginn gets 3 or fewer targets and he's going against guys that are going to blanket him. There's a good chance that he might not see the opportunities to drop the ball. So really you're saying, is Ted Ginn going to drop 1 of 3 passes, knowing that there's a chance he could get only 1 target? Of course, He leads the league in drop percentage, but it's still only 10%. So you're saying you got a 90% chance that he is not going to drop the ball. For me, I am saying no, Ted Ginn will not drop a pass.
It's tough, and if you watch Super Bowls, you go back and watch them, and any championship kind of opener, whether it be football or baseball or hockey or basketball, what have you, players are always very tight. As we say in Canada, you're holding a stick a little tight because, guys are worked up. It's been 2 weeks of getting, pumped up for the Super Bowl, and scoring is actually way down in the first quarter if you look back over the last 7 or 8 years. And it's because of that. Like, those passes come in and it's catches that they normally make, but they're just so jacked up and ready to go that they don't actually go through the cycle of, catch the ball first, then go. They're usually 2 steps ahead of themselves. So I think if this happens, I think it happens really, really early on. First quarter, I think this one, you bang it out, you cash it in early on.
Right, you can just envision first play of the game, Panthers go deep, Ted Ginn burns them, and then he just drops it, and you're just like, oh.
I think it's going to be like they'll sag off on him, a little underneath route. He runs up, runs that quick hook back, and I think it just hits him right in the face.
All right, last one, and I've heard a lot of chatter about this one. Will Mike Carey be wrong about a challenge? He is the rules expert. Yes, plus 145, no, minus 190. So certainly betting against Mike Carey seems like the fun thing to do. Every time there's a penalty, you would love to be able to be like, all right, mess this up, mess this up. But go next level on this prop bet. Mike Carey is hitting 90% on the year. And I have to give credit to For the Win for these stats. He had 44 reviews, 36 were correct, 4 incorrect, 4 no opinion given. So what it is we've got public perception is like Mike Carey is the worst. Everyone's like, he must be hitting 50%. It's just that we remember them, and I believe he had an incorrect one in the Patriots-Broncos game. So we got some recency bias. So smart money is on the no. Looking at this, Denver, 14th most penalties per game this year at 7 per game. Carolina, 7th fewest at 6.2 per game. So what we're looking at is maybe 13 penalties in this game. How many of them will Mike Carey actually get an opportunity to call on? For me, I would love to root against Mike Carey, but smart money in me says take the no.
Yeah, I mean, sports bettors. If you throw a 90% winner at a sports bettor, they're gonna bite the head off that. They're gonna jump all over that thing. We're in an industry where like 60% is, that's the golden hand of God right there. But someone said 90% of their calls, yeah, that's sure money right there. That's playing the odds. That's playing the percentages. It's one of those things where he's paid to be right, and when he's wrong, like the weatherman, right? Everyone wants to crap on him, but when he says it's sunny and it's sunny, no one cares.
Right.
For one, I hope it doesn't come down to one of these lengthy, drawn out, over replayed things that just, slows it, just brings the game to a screeching halt. I hope I don't have to sit through one of those. What's the yes?
Yes, plus 145, no, minus 190.
Minus 190. That's a tough one to eat. And the thing is, you don't want to, limits on these bets aren't that big. So, I mean, you can't really throw enough money at this one on the no to make it worth your while. So, I mean, if you are going to bet a small amount on the yes for plus money, why not? But I can't see you betting the no and be able to get enough money down on it to make it worth your time.
Nothing like being the guy at the party rooting for Mike Carey.
Yeah, you get some. I've gotten some sideways looks before with some pretty ridiculous Super Bowl props. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you're a deep degenerate.
All right, Jason, any final thoughts you want to give on the game, prop bets, anything?
Sure. The Gatorade bath is always a fun one, and this is one that I dove into last year, really handicapping it. The color of the Gatorade bath. Last year was blue, which was actually the first time since 2000 there's been blue Gatorade. And, maybe you want to think team color. The 2 years the Steelers won, it was yellow Gatorade. That's the only time there's been yellow Gatorade. So maybe blue Gatorade makes another appearance because, Carolina Panthers wear the blue. Orange has been the second most popular. That's been 4 times. And this includes some double baths. There's been double baths, and there's been 3 coaches that have got out scot-free. They've got out bone dry, generally because it's been like a late game field goal kick. Comes down to one last play, and they're on the field, and they're too busy celebrating to really get the bath in. Water has been the most popular at 7 times. But if you want to go with that trend of team color, blue holds good value. Shop around for that, I will say, because I have seen blue like very big at like plus 800, and then I've seen it really low, like plus 300, and almost like the second pick on the board because of last year's game. So yeah, if you're betting Super Bowl colors and you got a couple options, and obviously you have to do this online. This is something you can't do in Nevada. They don't offer it. If you've got some options, shop around, get that color that you want.
I like the value on blue because the Broncos colors are also blue. So they may have an orange and blue. Carolina might have just a blue one as well.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Good one, Rob. This is why we have these discussions every week.
Exactly right. We come on for the analysis about the Gatorade bath.
Welcome, sports bettors.
So, Jason, let everybody know what is going down on covers.com this weekend. Obviously, just a gigantic weekend for you guys.
Yeah, there's a bit of a game on Sunday.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard, we've been ramping up for Super Bowl coverage since those championship games. If you're looking to see where the action is coming, whether that be in Nevada, right in Las Vegas, online books, even overseas. I talked to a lot of bookmakers over in the UK, and it's become a really big event over there over the past decade. They used to offer spread and total and maybe couple alternative lines, and now these books are putting up like 200, 300 different props, which is pretty modest compared to what's out there at some of these other places. So we'll have in-depth analysis on the line movement, where the action is right up until kickoff. I've got my mismatches column up there, so we're breaking down 2 of the biggest betting mismatches, one for Carolina, one for Denver, so you stay on the fence and see which one you think holds more water. Have my muff punt column coming out. That has some great over-under trends. I'll be talking to some bookmakers about some of the more popular prop bets and where they're seeing money on those. The Harvard Sports Analysis Collective they knocked the socks off of it the last 2 weeks. They've got an article up there now that's talking about Carolina being the most disrespected Super Bowl bet ever, and why they hold value. And then they also went hardcore, much like yourself, on the prop analysis, including one which is Carolina Panthers versus Steph Curry, points scored on Super Bowl Sunday. I think it's for the Warriors Saturday game and Carolina's points on the Sunday. And Steph Curry is a 4.5-point favorite. So they really broke that down like only they can with advanced analytics. It's really cool. We've got our 50 Super Bowl notes that you need to know before betting the big game. Joe Fortenbaugh did that. That's up there. It's wall-to-wall Super Bowl coverage, whether it be our Twitter editorial. You come in, we've got stats and matchups, trends. I mean, you name it. This is Super Bowl betting headquarters, and it's all free. All editorial content, our scores and matchups, our Twitter feed, it's all free.
Awesome, Jason. I had an absolute blast this year talking NFL betting with you. I wish you much luck this Super Bowl, and have yourself a fantastic weekend, my friend.
You too, man. Thanks for having me on, and maybe we'll keep it going here. March Madness is coming up, and that's a bit of a betting event too.
No doubt about it. Boom shakalaka.